This is a production of WKNO Memphis. Production funding for Behind the Headlines is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Pensions, union contracts, and the county budget tonight on Behind the Headlines. I'm Eric Barnes, publisher of the Memphis Daily News. Thanks for joining us. We're joined tonight for a conversation about budgets, contracts, pensions, the schools. First, Kemp Conrad from the Memphis City Council. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And Mike Williams, president of the Memphis Police Association. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me as well.
And also Bill Dries from the Memphis Daily News. We'll be joined later by Mike Ritz from the County Commission, along with Melvin Burgess from the County Commission. Let's start. I'm going to pick up on a conversation we had a couple weeks ago with Councilman Conrad and Joe Sano from a watchdog group, City County Watchdog Group, about pensions and their concerns. A lot of people have concerns about the unfunded obligations, some $1 billion by some counts for pensions and healthcare, and we were unable to get any union representatives on for that show. But let me give you a chance to kind of respond to some of the concerns people have.
Okay.
And with a real simple question to start: are the unfunded obligations too big for the city to handle?
No. First of all, when you talk about unfunded liability, it's almost like a house mortgage. The only time that would actually come into play is if the city went bankrupt or you shut the city down. Then you would have to come true on your promissory note. We have over right at $2 billion in our pension fund currently. We also, in negotiations with the city, added approximately $500 million. All police officers and firemen that had under 10 years, we used to pay 6.5%. We're currently paying 8.5%. So that's going to contribute an additional $500 million to the pension fund. So it's going to go up. And we have to be careful, just like we're concerned about the money just as well as the city. But you have to be careful what you're taking out of the pension fund and how you're using that money and how you invest that money as well.
What about on the healthcare side? I mean, concern there, healthcare costs going up so greatly. There's a tremendous obligation to retirees and future retirees. Are you concerned on that side?
Well, we're definitely concerned. We want to make sure that we spend the taxpayers' money wisely. However, the last 3 years, the city, as far as our healthcare system, has actually operated and performed in the black. So at the end of the year, we actually had additional monies. In fact, one of the contentions that we have now is they have a miscellaneous fund that that the city just put into our healthcare fund, and we're trying to figure out where did that $8 million come from. And they're also adding additional employees' wages under the healthcare fund, when they really should be coming out of the general fund.
Let me get you in, Councilman Conrad. You have concerns. We talked about them a couple weeks ago on the show that just these are untenable liabilities. A very different picture that you paint than Michael Williams here. Give me your perspective.
Well, I heard Mike say two things. He said that the fund was fine, but then he said we made these changes so people had to pay in more, and the reason why is we did need to put in more, and I think that. We have an annual required contribution. We're supposed to put in $50 million more each of the last 3 years. Would you agree with that? The city was supposed to do that to make the fund whole. We have not done that, okay? So that's $150 million the last 3 years that our actuary said, Memphis, you need to put into this system, and we didn't do it. We balanced budgets with it. It is not right. And so workers are paying into a retirement system right now that makes unreal promises. If we're not putting the money in, and the city is offering benefits it can't pay. So either
to new employees, to current.
But no, to everybody in the system. Okay. And so Mike and I's interests should be aligned on this, especially for our police officers, where we need, we are not doing what our actuary said, and he just admitted that. So either we can raise taxes by $50 million a year to do it, we can reduce the benefits, or the employees have to put in more. And aren't those the three options?
Isn't that which of those do you want of those three? I assume it's not raising taxes.
I think that our tax rate is as high as it is right now is detrimental to the future growth of Memphis. I think that's one of the reasons why people leave. It's one of the reasons why companies are leaving and going to North Mississippi. It might be a combination of the three. I'm most interested in having a transparent and legitimate system that is honest to our taxpayers and is honest to our employees. And we just agreed that we have shorted it by $50 million each of the last 3 years. That's not right.
Your take on that?
Well, all respect to Councilman Conrad, I think our pension system is fine. Like I said, we have over $2 billion in there. And we put additional monies in there because, see, timing is everything. And when they kind of started wanting to talk about the pension system, yeah, it was down. The unfunded liability was, I believe, $500 million. However, the stock market was the worst that it had ever been. In the past, we have been 100% funded. During that time, unfortunately, the city didn't fulfill its obligation in putting the required money, which would not have been $50 million. So it kind of put us behind the power curve. So for us to leave the pension system the way that it was, we came to the table and said, the employees, leave it alone. We will contribute additional monies to shore up the pension system. Now, if the city has never really put what was required as far as what was their recommended contribution. They've never done that. But like I said, it's like a house note. You're never going to have to really, as long as this city is moving forward, you're never going to have to really just pay that balloon note of to pay the system out.
And what about in a lot of cities, states, counties around the country? There's a lot of talk about going away from defined benefit pension plans that guarantee a certain amount to 401k type plans. That in the private sector, that's all the rage and has been for some time. What about that possibility for changing retirement benefits into a 401k type plan going forward?
And I know everybody wants to compare private industry with public entities. At some point, we're going to have to, that's not why we took these jobs. In the private sector, I probably could have made a lot more money. I took this job for benefits. I took this job because I wanted to provide a service to my city. I took this job knowing that at the end of 25 years, because I'm not being paid as much, that I would have benefits available to me. A lot of time in private sector, you move from company to company, corporation to corporation. So a defined contribution plan may be a lot better, whereas we don't plan on going anywhere because this is a profession for me.
Okay. Bill.
Mike, your side of the bargaining talks with the city in terms of a new contract, I believe you're getting ready to go to the council, and the city is as well, to say we're at an impasse. We can't resolve this at this point.
Yes.
What are the issues that are on the table that a council committee is going to have to decide on this?
Well, they're in the process. We're in federal court right now dealing with a lawsuit, and the judge has said that there are possibilities that they violated our 14th Amendment rights when they took the 4.6 from us. The mayor has said he was going to give the 4.6 back. Me personally, the police association, we're not going to bargain the 4.6. You can give it, not give it. We're more concerned about the benefits. They were talking about taking away vacation days, holidays, sick days, different things like that. That's what we were more concerned about. But part of the problem is, I think the legal part of the city has found out that they may not win the lawsuit. So now what they're doing is attacking the impasse ordinance, which the citizens in 1978 gave through referendum to the employees of the city because they did not want us to go on strike. But now they're trying to change the language of the impasse ordinance so that they can circumvent it. And regardless of what contracts we come to in agreement with the city, then they still have an out and they can actually do away with it.
And the impasse ordinance, just for people who aren't familiar with that, that's essentially a form of negotiation, of arbitration,
right.
Other than, okay.
Right.
You had some response
I think
to
the
that.
key issue is, we change ordinances all the time. And one of the things, all we're trying to clarify, that the main power the council has is the power of the purse. And one of the things we're trying to do with this ordinance is make all these things that Mike's talking about, they're economic items. Holidays, pay time off, the number of days people are out, vacation days, all those impact headcount, impacts overtime. Those are all economic items. And so basically, that is our main power that the council has in city government. And those have been abdicated to the union process into the administration. So when things come to us, we can't, there's only so much we can change. I'll give you another example. Paid holidays. City employees have, I think, 13 or 14.
13.
13 paid holidays. How many do you have here or at your company at Daily News? 8, 9, 10, probably?
I have to do the math.
Maybe?
I bet
it's not single digits. Okay.
Right.
So there's a 40% delta between what the city does and what your company does. I think that's something that should be changed. I think that's reasonable. I think it's not draconian. Sick days, paid time off, all these things, when city employees didn't get raises every year, and it doesn't happen every year, other things got negotiated. And over 20 years, it's amassed, and it's simply unsustainable. And that's why we have this continual problem. I think there should be a way where people can come together, we can do right by our city employees and do right by the taxpayers and by our city. Let me tell you something. Our paving cycle, the average is 25 years in this city. Do you know what we're on a paving cycle right now in the city of Memphis? Take a guess.
I have no idea.
65 years. That's the paving cycle we're on. That's deplorable. So, I mean, I could go on and on. We have got to solve this issue.
So your point in saying that is that we're not getting enough for the money we're spending, that these benefits have gone up. But let's talk about public safety.
Okay.
And people make a different a distinction. When you've got police officers and you've got firefighters and first responders of those
Sure.
type, to what Mr. Williams was saying, isn't there a different consideration for those folks? Those people who risk their lives,
Absolutely.
those people who do that,
I don't think
who make less than they could.
Absolutely. I don't think we should treat everybody in city government the same. And what if I put a proposal on the table that we should give the police department 10% more and not everybody else? Would you support that?
Well, I'd have to take that back to my bargaining.
But just, if we had a deal, we were going to pay police officers 10% more next year, and not the rest of the city employees. Would you support that?
What I am finding is I'm not going to sit here and agree to anything on face value. For instance, just like when the city was talking about giving back the 4.6, but then they were talking about cutting our benefits, I would have to see the total package. I'm not disagreeing with you, and I'm not saying that I wouldn't do that. I'm saying that, in the past, and I'm not saying the council, there has not been true transparency in our negotiations. For instance, when we did the deal about adding the additional money to the pension fund, and now they come back around and they want to deal with the pension fund again already.
Because it's not sound.
But I tend to disagree that it's not sound. And when we say, like paving, we used to own our own asphalt company. We used to do our own paving.
They still do own the asphalt plant.
Well, we own the asphalt plant, but we're outsourcing, okay,
Right.
all of the work. So I'm saying when government was set up, it was set up to serve the citizens. We're doing more. Every time we say we don't have money, I just found out they want to give $10 million to the riverfront, to the boat dock. They want to give $12.5 million to the fairgrounds. They want to give, and they want to start giving away all of these public property, property that's owned by the citizens to private industry to build. Now, I am for economic development. I don't want anybody to ever think that I'm not.
Okay.
But at the same time, I think it has to be done in a manner to where it's just going to be conducive to the citizens and also to the business community.
All right, we're just last 30 seconds. Respond if you need to respond to some of that.
I think we need to be as concerned about the next 46 years as we are the 4.6%. We need more people who are focused on the long term. Mm-hmm. When you can't argue the facts, folks tend to pound the table, and I'm not saying that's what's going on here today, but the facts don't lie, and you're entitled to your own arguments, not your own facts. And our actuaries tell us this is the future liability you're going to have to pay out for workers.
Okay.
This is what's in the fund. They use reasonable return rates, and it's not going to be there for people unless we change.
Okay.
Of course.
Right. We're going to leave you the last word there. Thank you, Mike Williams, for being here. Ken
Thank
Conrad,
you.
thank you. Next up, a conversation with members of the County Commission on the daunting task of funding the Unified School District. We're joined now by County Commissioner Melvin Burgess. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And also Mike Ritz, Chairman of the County Commission. Thank you for coming back. Let's start with the budget. And Chairman Ritz, you have outlined it on the show, and you've been saying it for, I think, some months now, but now it's getting serious because we're in budget season. The county mayor was making a presentation this week. It's a dire situation from some perspectives. There's not a lot of money laying around in the county budget.
No, because of the reappraisal, we're about $53 million short of just being even because of the values of the property. So we're going to have to raise the rate 33 cents just to get that back to even. Now that doesn't mean everybody's property taxes are going up, but it does mean the rate's going to go up. And that's not a pretty circumstance to start with. Then you have the challenges that we're faced with this year, the biggest one being the school financing, because the city's no longer funding the schools. The schools are in a pretty dire circumstance, and the only other place to look is Shelby County.
Well, and forgive my quick math here, but
Right.
the shortcut is once if the adjustment based on the reappraisal happens, that's that 33 cents.
That's right.
There's a little more, maybe finagling around. There's maybe $5 to $10 million in quote new revenue available, and yet the Unified School Board has talked about a shortfall in the $50 to $100 million range.
That's exactly right. If we were to fund, the reason the $5 million for school number is out there is, I believe on the county commission at the moment, we have enough votes to raise the property tax by 9.99%. To raise it 10, you need another vote, need 9 votes. And if we were to raise it 40 cents, which is 10%, then in that extra amount between 40 cents and 33 cents just to stay even, that 7 cents could produce $5 million for schools plus a couple $1 million for the juvenile court.
Commissioner Burgess, you're also, I should say, a member of the cabinet of the Unified School Board, director
Yes.
of audit,
Yes.
internal
Yes.
audit there.
Yes.
So you have 2 hats in this conversation to some
That's
degree.
right.
It's a really difficult situation. I mean, or maybe you see the math differently, but there isn't a whole lot of money sitting there, and yet the county, the Unified School Board has talked about needing tens of millions of dollars given that lack of city funding.
Well, there's a lot of components that's going to be involved with this merger. I think people don't realize that, education is it's a big task. And for the most part, it's going to be a lot of unforeseen, even though we have a plan, the TPC plan that we're trying to go by, there's still going to be some unforeseen expenses that's going to come out of this. I mean, it's a big task. I know there were some instances about closing the schools, but there again, we still got to get the kids to school. But right now, the major focus is right now our #1 goal on that school board, on the cabinet, is to make sure that we open those schools on the first week of August and make sure kids are prepared and those schools are ready to open on August.
Are you confident, though, that the funding will be there at the level? I mean, so many people, particularly from the suburbs, the suburban-oriented members of the board, suburban parents have said, look, just don't change anything for this first year. Don't change the class sizes. Don't change my teacher. Is the funding going to be there to keep the amount of change in the classroom at a minimum?
I think, talking with the superintendent, Dorsey Hobson, I think there is no worry. I think what is happening is I think we're just getting a lot of communication that is not just correct. I think in all the schools have been staffed to teacher-pupil ratio as per the state, and I think schools are any kind of communication that, people don't understand, they need to just maybe get the right information. But right now, people are panicking and they're concerned, and just there are a lot of things on the street that are just not correct. So we're trying to get together with Superintendent Hobson and our staff, the cabinet, to go out and do some of these town hall meetings and let people know, what the correct verbiage is when it comes to your school. A lot of schools are concerned they're going to be losing some of their staff, but we had to take some cuts, but we're going to still make sure that every child education is what it needs to be.
Bill.
Chairman Ritz, you all got the budget presentation from Mayor Luttrell this week, and it included, I believe, the $4 million or so that we've been talking about if sheriff's deputies become the resource officers in what are now Memphis schools. So does that free up $4 million? Are we talking about $9 million
Very good.
for schools?
Very good. Mr. Reeds, I need to put you on the staff of the county commission. You're exactly right. The mayor's inclusion of the 4 in the county's budget, math and all that, gives us essentially about $9 million for schools, if the math we just shared stays in place. And I'm pretty confident it will. Now, that doesn't mean there couldn't be some other things happen, but I think, frankly, the amount of money we now avail for schools has grown from about 5 to about 9.
All right. Commissioner Burgess, as chairman of the commission's budget committee, and also someone who's working on the budget at the schools level as one of the players in that, are you working on the schools budget under the assumption that there's $5 million in extra funding, or does that change with the budget that's now before your committee?
Well, for the most part, internal audit where we pretty much oversee not just the budget, but also as a cabinet member, we just look at the process and I sit in to see what expenses are going to hit the table and what can be paid for, what's realistic. So right now, I mean, as a cabinet, we're pretty much going forward of what we think we're going to get is what the school system is going to get. So that's how we plan.
Right.
But, like I said earlier, is the major focus is we just want to make sure that we open those schools the first week of August and let parents know that things will not change. The buses will be there on time and ready for kids to get ready to learn.
All 13 commissioners obviously count heads when it comes to some kind of tax increase or the recertified rate. What do you think the head count is like on the county commission for a 40-cent tax hike, 33 cents of it being the certified rate?
Well, that's kind of hard to say because we have a lot of mixed emotions and we all got different personalities. But I can say for myself, one thing I do know, and I hear the word economic development, I think our children in this county in Memphis should be our economic development. I think until we invest in our children, we're going to always see that budget picture like the mayor presented on Wednesday, that the top two expense items on that budget is jail and education. If you don't invest in the other one will go up. So it's vice versa. So I think until we invest in education, this is our time to get education right as a city.
Mr. Chairman, where do you think the votes are on this?
I think, like I said, I think we have probably enough votes to go right to about 40 cents. And I don't think it'll go past that. It could fail. It could fail a little bit, but I think that's about where we are. I don't think there'll be any grants this year. There's some other additional requests. This is the worst year ever for making tough decisions. I mean, we got to make some tough decisions that a lot of people aren't going to be happy about.
Do some of those tough decisions, I mean, you hear people say, look, if the property rate, if the property values have gone down, the spending should go down. It should go down dramatically. I mean, is that under discussion?
Just a little bit. I think, frankly, next Wednesday or soon thereafter, one or more of the commissioners are going to request the administration to come back with a budget that essentially eats that $53 million. Now, what that means is essentially what will happen is that budget then would have to reflect, because 70% of our costs are people, probably a significant cut in the number of sheriff's deputies and jailers and people at the health department.
Yeah.
Because that's where most of our people are.
Commissioner Burgess, do you want to see a budget like that? Just even whether or not you vote for it, but is that an important thing to see? Like this is what we'd have to cut if and these are the people, these are the expenses we'd have to cut if we didn't do this tax increase.
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, everybody now got to put skin in the game. It's going to be some hard decisions. And those are some of the decisions that, that we're making on both sides, on the commission side, as far as, and on the cabinet side. So, I mean, we got to make these decisions and we got to move forward. The money's just not there. The sales tax is flat. The revenues from the state has decreased. I mean, we got to make hard decisions, but still remain, at a point to where our school system is these kids are still learning academic achievement, and we're still doing what we have to do, and security. That's also an issue also.
When you look at this both from a commissioner's perspective and someone in the school system,
Sure.
You've got so much uncertainty. There's a realistic scenario. There's a municipal school bill that's moving through Nashville, the state right now, moving pretty quickly, which would allow the suburban schools to break off a year plus from now. How do you plan from that from a spending point of view, from a staffing point of view, from every point of view when there's so much uncertainty a year out?
Well, in the field of accounting, I worked at a public accounting firm, and I worked on a team, where there was some acquisition mergers going on, and it's totally different. The difference you have is you have a big entity like Memphis City Schools that's dwindling down to a small entity. So you're talking about the second largest employer in Memphis, Memphis City Schools, over 107,000 students and 20,000 employees trying to merge over to one small system. So it's very different. It is very different, and it's very challenging. So, I think Chairman Ritz said earlier, there's going to be a lot of unforeseen cost is going to happen that we won't even know about right now. I mean, it's going to be unforeseen. You just don't know what's going to happen.
Your perspective on that? I mean, all the unknowns about this merger, but the one that seems most likely is this bill passing that gives the suburbs the chance to break off. How do you plan for that? You're talking about big tax increases. How does the county plan for that kind of uncertainty?
Interestingly enough, the suburbs probably have more interest in this matter than they think they have. I think they think they're going to be paying for their own schools, but they are going to be paying for the additional cost of their own schools. But they're also going to be paying for the county schools.
Right.
And they don't lose that opportunity. And they have an interest in the school funding going up, because to the extent that the school funding goes up this year, it perpetuates itself. We can't cut it. And the amount we give to schools, like it used to be in the old days, the city got their piece, the county got their piece. In the future, good possibility, the county schools will get theirs, and each suburban piece will get their piece based on average daily attendance. They have a cat in this game, but I don't think they want to admit it. They don't want to appear to be supporting the unified school district when they're doing what they can to create municipal school districts. But in the issue of financing, they ought to recognize they're all in the same boat.
And at this point, just 10 seconds left, any negotiation continuing with the suburbs between the county, any conversation?
They're not talking to us about anything.
And would you like to speak to them about anything?
Well, frankly, they're the ones, we don't have any, we're just the funders of schools. I mean, it's not like we make any decisions.
Okay, all right. We're going to leave it there. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. Join us again next week. Good night.